In this clip, I will show you step by step how I created these two Easter cards. I will also show you how I painted the daffodils using watercolours. So let's get on with the clip. So before we start with the fun part of painting, we need to measure out equal areas for our eggs. I should let you know that I am painting on Arches 300 GSM paper and I've folded it into a card shape, and I'm sketching my eggs out lightly with a mechanical pencil. On the 8th egg I have added a chick. You could add that anywhere you like. And I am adding cadmium yellow hue from the Winsor & Newton Cotman set. And I will then add a variety of colours. The first one is from the Pastel Dreams watercolours confection set, and I am adding Paradise and Sea Dream, and I will blend them in the middle. For the second egg I have blended Crimson from the watercolour confections Pastel Dreams set on the bottom left hand and Rose on the top right hand side. As I said, you can use any colours you like from your set that you have. I would suggest that you try and maybe blend them together in the middle. You could just have one colour, that's fine. For the next egg, I will add firstly Pool Party and then Icy Sky from the watercolour confection set. For this next egg, I have added my layer of clean water, and then I'm going to, on the left hand side, add an area of alizarin crimson from the Winsor & Newton Cotman set, and then what I will do is I will blend that up to the right hand side so that I have graduated tone. So after I have added a layer of water on the egg, I'm going in on the left hand side with an area of cadmium red pale hue from the Winsor & Newton set, and a colour called Citrus, which is a bright orange from the watercolour confections pastel shades. For this egg I wanted to create a kind of mottled effect, so what I did was I added water to the egg first, and then I added two different colours. One was Pool Party and the other was Lilac Rain from the Pastel Dreams set. Of course you can use any colour that you like, but I would suggest that you choose two or three contrasting colours so that they show up against each other. I'm now going to make another graduated tone egg using one base colour, and this colour that I'm using is Hooker's Green from the Winsor & Newton Cotman set. So I'm going to start by using that colour on the left hand side and then gradually adding water to blend that tone up to the right hand side. Because I want to have a colour that offers contrast to the yellow of the chick, I decided to use Lilac Rain from the Pastel Dreams set, because that fits in with the spring theme of being a pastel, yet it's an opposing colour to the yellow on the colour wheel, so it works really well and offers that contrast. When I've finished painting the egg, I will then move on to paint the beak, and I will use Citrus from the Pastel Dreams palette. So whilst the eggs are drying, they need to be completely dry before I add fine liner on top. I've decided to start on my second card, which is a picture of some daffodils. I wanted to create an interesting composition by having the daffodils on one side and the text on the left hand side. I have worked from a stock image, and I have also used transfer because I want it to be really precise and look as realistic as possible rather than just sketching. So I transferred the image onto the watercolour paper. Again, I'm using Arches Cold Press 300 GSM, and I have folded it in preparation of the card. That's why it's heavily taped down. Some people, what they do is they just have a rectangle and they stick that onto the card, but I like it just to be a complete card. So I'm starting by using Sap Green, and then I'm layering on top with a mixture. This darker mixture on top is Sap Green mixed with Payne's Grey. And then in a moment, when I have finished adding those two darker layers, I will also add a further layer on top of Hooker's Green. Now that is just to brighten up the leaf a bit more. If you have a look carefully at daffodil leaves, they're quite a bright green, but I'm underpainting these leaves just to give them the tonal values, and then I will put the brighter green on top to lift the tone or the hue of those leaves. For this image here, I'm using sap green because I need it to be slightly lighter and brighter. So I'm going straight in with sap green, and then I will add the darker mixture of the sap green mixed with the Payne's grey for the darker areas at the base of the leaf. Now that the card with the egg designs has dried, I'm ready to start adding with fine liner detail. It's really important that you wait for your card to dry entirely, because if you don't, the marks that you make will start to bloom and expand, and you want them to be crisp and detailed. I will be using a Stabilo 0.88 fine 0.4, and links to all of the products that I've used are in the description below, so if you wanted to go directly to these, that is fine. But you can use any fine liner as long as it is quite detailed, or you could alternatively just use black colour pencil. And I am just using any random doodles. You might want to go and have a look and see if you could find some Easter egg designs, but I'm just using whatever comes into my head. You might want to, if you are a little bit less confident or something that is more detailed, you might want to sketch it first in lead pencil or with a mechanical pencil in a very fine way before you start adding the designs, but I'm just doing whatever pops into my head. When you get to the final egg, don't forget to add the eyes to the chick, because then they will stand out more, and that's the egg area of the design finished. You will then need to take the tape off of the central area so you can start adding in your lettering. I will draw my lettering in with pencil first, and then I will be using the Stabilo fine liner plus a Tombow ink pen, so that I can fill in those areas, the thicker areas of my writing design. I would suggest, if you are doing writing, unless you are really confident with your handwriting skills, that you sketch your writing out so you can plan out where everything goes before you go in with your writing. Obviously, you don't have to write Happy Easter, you can write any greeting that you like. That's the beauty of making homemade cards, so that you can customise them. You could write them to someone, Happy Easter to Mum, or Happy Easter to a friend of yours. But the key is to plan it all out, especially when you've invested so much time, because it would be a real mistake, it would be a real shame if you've spent all this time on your painting to damage it at this stage. So now back to the daffodil painting, and the leaves will have dried now whilst we were finishing off the egg painting. And we are going to start by going on to the petals that are at the back. Remember, when we're doing a painting, we always start with the back areas first. And we are going to look at the petals that are at the back, the paler petals. And I'm going to be using the colour Bumblebee, which is the yellow in the Pastel Dreams palette. And what I will do is just add light layers of this to the petals that have been wet down. As I've said, I'm just going to be adding areas to those lighter petals first. When looking at your reference image, pick out the darker areas, and those are the areas where you should be using more of the paint, and the lighter areas where you should be using more water. When we come to filling in the central areas later, we will be talking more about the tones in the darker and lighter areas, but just make sure that you are continually referring to your reference image to get an indication of where the darker and the lighter areas are. Of course, if you are not using this palette, just make sure that you are picking a colour that is as close to this yellow as possible. This is what I would call a cold yellow. It's very similar to a yellow which is called lemon yellow, which you could also use. It's just that this yellow Bumblebee is particularly good for this daffodil petal. So I'm now painting the central part of the daffodils, and for this we need richer tones of yellow. So I'm starting with cadmium yellow hue from the Cotman set, and I will move on to picking out different tones as I move throughout the reference image. You will see that at times I will be adding browns, and that is because I want to pick out richer tones. At the very end I will go in with colour pencil because I want to pick out finer details. The brown that I will be using will be the sepia from the Cotman set, for the simple reason that I need a darker brown. I need a really dark cold brown. So the yellow that I will be using in the centre will mainly be the cadmium yellow hue, and the brown will be the sepia, and those are both from the Cotman range. If you are using a different palette, then obviously just refer to the colours in the Cotman and then try and match them to your own, but those are the colours that I am using for today. So as you can see, I am applying the sepia whilst the yellow paint is still wet, because I want to create quite a soft feel with this wet on wet technique. Obviously when you are doing this you can't control that, and I'm also adding elements of the sepia so that I'm creating the effect of the folds in as the central part of the daffodil comes out. If you find that elements of that expand more than you would like to, then all you need to do is go in with a cotton bud to take up that excess paint where it's gone beyond the point where you want it to, and I would do that as soon as possible before it soaks into the paper. I am now going along this edge again with my cadmium yellow. I fully expect the brown to mix in with that, that's fine. I could, if I wanted to, wait for it to dry, but I'm just going to take a chance and go along with it. If it expands, which it may do, I'll just go in and I will mop that up with a bit of cotton bud. As with the previous card, I have pre-sketched my writing onto the card before going in with pen, just in case I make a mistake, because we all make mistakes and it's just much easier. It plans it out. It means that you can just ensure that it's all even and it's in the central place that you want it to be before you start adding that pen. So I'm going in with the Stabilo fine liner first for the details, and then I will go in with the Tombow writing pen afterwards. All of the information on the pens, the paints, the paintbrushes and the paper that I've used for the cards, both the cards today, is in the description below. So now that I have finished with the pen detail, I'm going to go in with a Prismacolor pencil just to pick out some dark areas and to give the daffodils some more definition. If you would like to find out some more information on Prismacolors, please click on the card above to see the review on Prismacolor pencils. If you enjoyed this clip, then make sure you check out more clips like this in the watercolour and greetings card playlist. Don't forget to look in the description below for details of products used in today's clip. And if you have any ideas for content or questions, leave a comment below. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of future content. And happy Easter!